Hello and welcome back to the studio. I'm Dr. Wiggo and today I've got an exciting... I'm lying. It's another SSD enclosure. But it's kind of exciting. Why am I doing another video about an SSD enclosure? What's wrong with me? Well, of course, as always, there's a story, which I'll get to in just a second. But if you don't care about the story, then just skip on ahead to the actual unboxing, or get to the important part and skip on ahead to the performance testing. Because the reason I'm doing this is because this is supposed to be the fastest SSD enclosure you can buy. Well, we'll see about that. First, the quick story. I've been saving all of my videos for the channel onto the OWC Envoy Pro, which I did a video about a long time ago, but I'll link it down below. But it's only 4 terabytes, and so I decided I needed to use 8 terabytes. And if you recall from some other videos I will link down below, I have a Western Digital 850X, which is pretty damn fast, and it's in an enclosure, but it's been unmounting. And I don't know if it's the enclosure, I don't know what's going on, but I was thinking about buying another enclosure, and lo and behold, YouTube serves up to me Jerry Schultz's video about this very enclosure, which I will link down below. And I thought, well, maybe if it's the enclosure, and this is supposedly a faster enclosure, I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It was only like 220 bucks, so I figured, what the heck, I'll take the shot. So I ordered it. So I'm going to unbox it, and then I'm going to go downstairs like I always do and run some performance tests, and then come back up here and tell you all about it. That's the plan for the video. Well, let's get straight to the unboxing. This is the OWC Express 1M2 80 gigabits per second, but it's a new version. There was a previous Express 1M2, but this one is better somehow. We'll see. Marketing-wise, supremely fast, widely compatible, highly portable. We're going to test the supremely fast, but I'm pretty sure about the widely compatible and highly portable. Well, let's get into this box. Not much of an unboxing. We have the thing. We have a USB 4 cable. This is not a Thunderbolt 5 enclosure, but it kind of is, because basically it is a Thunderbolt 5 enclosure that they didn't pay the money to get certified by Intel. But according to Jerry Schultz's video, linked below, it has the same chip in it as the OWC Thunderbolt 5 certified things. So it's kind of Thunderbolt 5. That's all immaterial to us. Also in here is a little screwdriver, which we're going to need to put the SSD in there. Oh, and little feetsies. So here's the actual enclosure, and you can see it doesn't have a foot on this end because that's where the screws are. So after you install the drive, then you can put the feet on, and if you have to change the drive, you can pull the feet off, take it off, and then you have 2 more backups, which you'll lose if you're me. That was the unboxing. Let's get straight into installing the SSD. Wait, I need an SSD. Where would I find one? Maybe in my pocket. This is the Acasis that I reviewed. Those videos will be linked below. I've tested this in multiple videos. I always forget. Pull here. There we go. So there's my Western Digital drive that I want to put in here. So we'll just take these little screws out. Oh, don't lose them. And there's where the drive goes, and there's the screw. There's the chip I told you about that's the same as the one in their Thunderbolt 5 controllers. Now in the old Acasis, it was a little rubber thing that I just dropped. Is this a magnetic screwdriver? Oh, it is. Excellent. This is where I love the little rubber stopper like in the Acasis, because you didn't have to mess with the screw. And job done. I'm not going to put the little feet on here, because one of the things I'm going to test when I'm down in the office is I'm going to pull this back out and put in that Gen 5 drive that has not worked in any other enclosure, and just see if it works in here. I'm betting not, because it hadn't worked in any other enclosure, because these really aren't rated for Gen 5 speeds, but we'll give it a try. Who knows? Well, that's all I can do for right now. So now I'm gonna go downstairs and hook it up and fool around with it, and then I'll come back up here and show you some charts and graphs and tell you how it went. I'll be back like that.
2 days later.
Well, that went pretty well. If it went well, why did it take 2 days? Yeah, there's a story. And if you don't care about that, just skip on to the next chapter where we'll get into the actual performance results. I'll talk a little bit about them right here. So what happened was I got downstairs, put my 850X into the OWC enclosure and ran the tests, and I got these results. Writes of 3,600 and reads of like 5,600. I went, well, that's not good. But it turned out almost 7 terabytes of the WD850X were full. If you remember my previous videos, which I will link below, first I went from PC to Mac, so I had to copy all my old video files from all my videos, and I had to move them onto SSDs for the most part, formatted in exFAT so that Windows and Mac could read them. And then I got the NAS, then I moved a bunch of stuff off my drives onto the NAS, but I forgot one. And that was the WD850X, which had like 7 terabytes of video files on it. And so it was full. Now you'd think that wouldn't make a difference. If you watch Jerry Schultz's video down below, he talks about how the WD850X has like a fast part and a slow part, which I didn't really get. But then I looked into it, and it turns out most NVMe SSDs have a cache of some sort. So they can do really fast writes for a while and then slow down. The WD850X technically doesn't have a cache, but what it does have is 2 terabytes of the 8 terabytes are SLC NAND flash, and the other 6 terabytes are TLC, which is slower. So what happens is, when you copy onto it, for the first 2 terabytes, it sails at full speed, but then it fills up that fast part that Jerry talked about, and then it has to start going to the slow part, and the speeds drop dramatically. Apparently, in its downtime, it moves stuff out of the fast part into the slow part so that the next time you go to write, everything's fine. But guess what? When the drive is almost full, like mine was, it couldn't move that stuff out, and so it couldn't free up a lot of space there, so the write slowed way down. And that's why it took 2 days, because I had to get that 7 terabytes off of my 850X and onto the NAS, and NASs are way slow. Yeah, I know, it's 10 megabit, it's supposed to be fast, but it's not that fast. And I ran into some problems. Apparently, when I set up my folder for my video archives, I specified it could only grow to 20 terabytes, and I was like near that limit. So I had to go in and figure out how to set it to 30 terabytes, and that took a long, long time. In my NAS videos, I said the Ugreen software wasn't really up to par. It was getting there, and it's getting better, but I couldn't even figure out how to do it for it took me hours to track down how to do this. I never did find it with Google or in their documentation. I finally had to just figure it out by trying every little thing. And finally, you go to the folder, and that's where the thing is. It was a nightmare. Because the Mac, by the way, these folders appear as volumes, and when it says free space, it's the free space on the NAS, not the free space available to the folder. So it said I had like 20 terabytes left. Only I didn't. But then I did, and I cleaned it all off. And also in this process, I discovered why the WD850X in the Acasis enclosure was suddenly dismounting. It's because I had hit the little fan button here. There's a button here, it's like a 3-speed fan. It's off, and then I think auto, and then on. And I apparently clicked it to off at one point. Well, it's easy to bump. It's right next to where you plug it. I had turned the fan off and it was overheating, and that's why it was spontaneously dismounting. Once I turned the fan back on, everything's been great. So that's why it took 2 days, because I had to copy everything and move it. Now let's get into the interesting part. So I tested the WD850X in both enclosures, both still formatted exFAT after I got all the stuff off, and then also I reformatted to APFS, the Mac file system, to see if that was any faster. By the way, it's not. It's slightly slower, very slight. So formatted to APFS, Mac file system. Here, let me put up a chart. So the Acasis is getting 5940 writes and 5661 reads, and the OWC got 5902 writes and 5689 reads. So the OWC is very, very slightly faster on reads and very, very slightly slower on writes, so it's kind of a wash. They're both really fast. Important note, the W850X is rated for 7,200 megabytes per second if it's in a PCMIe NVMe slot. With both of these, I'm only getting 82% of the rated speed of the drive, but it's still plenty fast. It's faster than most internal SSDs and most Macs. Not the newest ones, Apple's finally upgraded. But wait, there's more. My real excitement was when I put the Sabrent Rocket in here just to see if maybe it would work. The Gen 5 NVMe drive that I bought, that I talk about in the videos linked below, which didn't work in any enclosure. It works in this one, and it's fast. Here's the chart. So the Sabrent Rocket is getting 6370 writes and 5898 reads. exFAT is 5931, 5742. APFS is 5902 writes, 5689 reads. So it's a little bit faster. So it's 400 megabytes per second faster on writes and 150 megabytes faster on reads. Nothing to write home about. But it's rated for 14,000 megabytes per second in a Gen 5 NVMe slot. So I'm really only getting 46% of the actual speed, which is a bit of a bummer. But when Thunderbolt 6 comes out, I'll be able to move this to a Thunderbolt 6 enclosure and get closer to the 14,000 megabytes per second. 14 gigabits per second. That's going to be fast, but not yet. So the result is the WD850X is going to stay in the Acasis enclosure, where again, it's almost identically as fast as in the OWC enclosure. But the Sabrent Rocket, which only works in this enclosure, does not work in any of the other enclosures I bought in any of those videos down below. They're all Gen 4 and below only. I went and looked at the specs, and this one says it supports Gen 5 NVMe SSDs, and I can verify that is true. And they're slightly faster than the Gen 4s, but you don't get all the speed. But what it does mean is, since the Sabrent Rocket can only live in this enclosure, I will never be opening it up again until I get a faster Thunderbolt 6 enclosure, which is probably years away. I'm going to go ahead and put on the little feet, because I will not be opening this back up. Here we go. The OWC Express 1M2 80 gigabits per second enclosure is now the permanent home of the Sabrent Rocket, and I now have a rockin' fast 4 terabyte hard drive. And the WD850X permanent home is the Acasis 501 Pro. One more thing. As always, I watch a lot of videos to get my videos ready so I can steal good ideas, like Jerry Schultz's thing about the slow part and the fast part, which I never would have known if I hadn't seen his video, and then I went and did the research and found out. But in another video, a guy testing it with laptops, which of course I never thought to do, apparently this thing pulls like a lot of watts at idle, like 12 watts. So if you need to take an SSD on the road with you, this may not be your choice because it may pull too much power and drain the battery of your laptop. I think it peaked at 21 watts, but that's a lot. So I am extremely happy with my purchase, not because it's faster than the Acasis, they're the same speed, but because it supports Gen 5 NVMe SSDs, and I've had this one for months and months. Thumbs up to OWC, great purchase for $220, and I'm gonna go play with this now. So that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time. Bye-bye. I gotta go copy some more files off. I've been moving things around. Thanks for staying to the end. Bye-bye.